a week away from Christmas, and I wish I could say I'd got all my Christmas shopping done, but that would be a total lie and all along those lines. So definitely got to get some shopping done and get some things done in that space. Some of it may be even done after the holidays because, finances are often the reason that sometimes people are procrastinating. And definitely procrastination can be one of my weaknesses, and I know it can be the weaknesses of others as well. I find out from my guests that when they come on, if they've done their Christmas shopping, if they've got big Christmas plans, I think I'll be going up to my mother's house, the same place that I spent Thanksgiving with, and all along those lines. But I know the Christmas parades have been going on. As a matter of fact, there were several of them here in the area over the last week or two. As a matter of fact, my brother was in one with his Slingshot Club, which is like those three-wheel cars and all along those lines. But a lot of things are taking place in the world just in general. So I'll detail you a little bit about those, and then I'll bring in my amazing guests, see what they've got going on in their lives and what they're doing, even in the space of gratitude and in the space of activism and a number of other things that they are involved in. But as far as the news goes, the suspect in the Russia's general's killing has been detained outside of Moscow. So, with some folks are wondering what's known about the brazen bombing that killed a top Russian general in Moscow, and Igor Karlov, Russia detains an Uzbek man over the general's killing. And definitely that's one of the stories that is going on in the world. And of course, this horrible trial that is going on with Gazelle Pellicot, which is that rape trial in France, is continuing and all along those lines. And some folks are wondering how Dominique Pellicot, who was accused of organizing France's worst sex crime in a generation. And it definitely looks like the trial has a feminist hero, according to some folks, and all along those lines. So it'll be very interesting to see what goes on in that space as well. And Andrew Tate can have over $3 million seized from him in tax disputes, according to the British courts. So it looks like they have Andrew and Tristan Tate have lost a £2 million court case over unpaid taxes. And the UK court says police can seize millions in the unpaid tax from the misogynist influencer Andrew Tate. So definitely that's something going on as well. And some folks are wondering who is Friedrich Merz of Germany, as he lashed it out at the Greens at a German election campaign, as the German election campaign starts. And there's some folks that are saying he is Germany's probable new chancellor. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And hundreds of Pyongyang troops are killed or hurt fighting in Ukraine, according to the U.S. Indoctrinated, loyal, and well-trained. Some folks, including some experts, are saying don't underestimate North Korean soldiers in Russia. So an intercepted Russian phone call suggests that the North Korean troops are suffering trainloads of wounding. So even the Ukrainian troops are saying inexperienced North Koreans are making easy targets. And Gaza is now counting 45,000 dead and pleading for the world's help. So dozens killed in a day as Israel steps up attacks across Gaza, and Gaza mediators intensify ceasefire efforts as Israeli strikes kills 20 people. And in Syria, Syrian mass graves show the worst abuse since the Nazis, according to what a top prosecutor has said. Horrible wounds consistent with torture. Clarissa Ward gets a glimpse of Assad's latest victims from inside a morgue. So that's something else that's going on in the news. And Europeans are grappling over security force for post-war Ukraine. And Poland is a frontline state that can't give everything to Ukrainian defense, according to Tusk. So Poland's Donald Tusk meets Volodymyr Zelensky in a surprise visit to Lviv. So definitely it looks like that war is continuing. We're having developments in that as well. And CIA director has arrived for talks amid rising hopes for a Gaza ceasefire, and Hamas prisoner deportations to Turkey and Qatar could be included in an imminent deal. So we'll see what happens and if that deal is able to take place. And Xi Jinping visits Macau to mark the 25 years of Chinese rule. So there are some folks that are wondering if some changes aren't going to be made in that country's rule and all along those lines. So definitely there's some folks that are looking into that space and seeing what will happen in that particular country. And King Charles is haunted by Prince Andrew as a grubby duke humiliates monarchy in Years from Hell, according to what some experts are saying. So the Prince Andrew's Chinese spy drama again pushes King Charles III to rein in his scandal-prone brother. So that's something else going on in the world. And there, of course, is deadly violence in Nigeria tied to the United Methodist Church schism over LGBTQ policies. So there's definitely stuff going on there as well. And part of it apparently is around some of the rules involving that segment of society. Let me get to some news in the U.S., then I'll bring in my guests and see what they've got saying in their world. And all along those lines, there's still reports about what's going on in that Wisconsin shooting that took place recently. So the small, tight-knit community in Madison, Wisconsin is reeling from the school shooting, as court records point to a troubled home life for the Wisconsin school shooter. Teacher killed by the Wisconsin school shooter, Natalie Rapnow, was subbing for the regular teacher who was away on vacation. And at vigils across Madison, a grieving city struggles to make sense of that particular shooting strategy. It seems like every time we turn around, there's another shooting strategy of one sort or another. And House Republicans are calling for Liz Cheney to be investigated over her January 6th committee role. So Chairman Loudermilk releases second January 6, 2021 report. And after investigating January 6th, House GOP sides with Trump and is now going after Liz Cheney. So that's something else that's going on in the news as well. And Indiana carries out its first execution in 15 years. And that process was scrutinized and all along those lines. So let's get this over with. Joseph Corcoran becomes Indiana's first execution in 15 years, as that is what was happening in that space. And apparently he chose Ben and Jerry's ice cream as his last meal. And of course, we know what's going on with the Trump newspaper suit with Des Moines Register newspaper and a number of other things in that space. And 5 family members are dead in a Utah home as a boy 17 was found wounded. So that's something else that we're seeing. And apparently that had to deal with gunshot wounds as well. So definitely gun violence continues to be running, I would say, rampant all over the country and all along those lines. FBI is warning New Jersey residents not to shoot down drones or point lasers at aircraft. There's a lot of drones authorized up there as Biden sends radar systems and tries to calm fears. So definitely a lot's going on in the world. But let me bring in Shala Patel. And like I said, I've got my other guests as well, but just to see what she's got going on, because I know she is very much active in the space of activism, and particularly with women's rights, and was not all that pleased at the situation with our current president-elect and everything like that. But definitely Dr. Patel, has got to have you here again. You've been here with us before and everything, but I just wanted you to share a little bit about your feelings as to what you expect in women's rights and rights around care of those that are trying to get births, whether that is wanting access to abortions or wanting access to birth control or a number of other things that I know that you've been very much involved in the fight for.
Thank you very much for inviting me back, Mark. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience. You're right that, when up to 40% of OBGYN people, the residents, can't even get training in abortion rights. People think that abortion is just ending a pregnancy that they don't want. People don't realize that 1 in 4 American women of birthing age have been through an abortion crisis. Abortion crisis is what? A spontaneous abortion. That is nature's way of saying that this is not a feasible fetus that can live past probably the first few weeks of birth or the first year of birth. Infant mortality really is a death of a child within the first year of birth. Now, let's look at what are the problems that are occurring because of this. Well, first, like I mentioned, that the residents are not getting enough training in how to perform or treat spontaneous abortions because of all the draconian laws that are going to come up or are already in place. 26 out of 50 states already have limitations on what they can do and not do. I am one of those people that when I say 1 in 4 women, I was myself involved with having an ectopic pregnancy at the age of 25. Now, I could have bled to death if I was in one of those states because the doctors would be too scared to touch me and give me care. And so, yes, I am very outspoken in the rights of women and healthcare. Abortion rights is a healthcare issue. Now, if we're not going to train our residents to treat these women correctly, if the states don't have enough obstetricians to treat, because I want people to remember that the states that have these limitations on abortions, there are 33% less obstetricians now available in those states. And so now you're going to have less access to doctors. You're going to have less access to the specialty or the training that they need to treat these women. Out of all the women that are either seeking abortion or needing help for this, 22 million women have to travel more than 1 hour. Majority of the situations where maybe a spontaneous abortion or bleeding or an infection or, like I said, an ectopic pregnancy, 1 hour may be too late for some of these women. So what has happened? That we've had an increase in mortality rate, not only for the mothers, but we've also had an increase in the mortality rate for the infants. Let's talk about why there has been an increase in mortality rates. Well, a lot of people look at the children and the babies that are unborn when it comes to an abortion issue. They don't look at the woman or the child that's in front of them. Now, I'm going to put out a statistic, which is pretty horrendous. 70% of pregnancies in the Black population are unplanned. 42% of the pregnancies amongst the whites are unplanned. Now, what are the reasons for it being unplanned? Well, a lot of times it may be just college girls getting intoxicated, having a night out, getting pregnant, which derails their whole plan for the future. There might be mothers who have already got 2 or 3 babies that they can barely afford to raise, and then they get into a 4th pregnancy or even 2nd or 3rd pregnancy, which they cannot afford. So, these women start becoming desperate. How about all the pregnancies that come out of incest, rape, or sex trafficking? A lot of the states that are banning the abortions, they don't even have any kind of leeway where these things are taken into consideration for the women to have the access to the abortion that they need.
Before I bring in the other guests and everything like that, one of the questions I had for you, because it actually directly impacted me many years ago and everything. Do you feel that enough is being done to prepare women for dealing with multiple pregnancies? I actually have a cousin. It's the only cousin that I have lost, and I think that she was in her. Unfortunately, the child was born and has lived and survived and everything, and is doing quite well as a teenager. But I remember, I think a preteen or a teenager, one of the others. But I do remember many years ago that my cousin Sarah died in childbirth, and she was, I think, being cared to by a midwife, if I remember correctly, and all along those lines. But do you think that enough is being done to make sure that those kind of disasters don't happen? Like I said, it was several years ago, and it was definitely way before the pandemic and everything that I lost that particular cousin, and it was in her, I want to say, 4th pregnancy.
Well, the sad part is, like you said, is enough being done. If anything, things are taken away from what can be done. Women should have access to healthcare. This is healthcare. So, the doctors are scared. The laws are saying that you can sue anybody that is even having a spontaneous abortion. How do you, really rectify the situation if the women are not having a safe place, a safe environment to be able to be taken care of? A lot of the states that are having these bans don't actually have the social services where they're saying, okay, we'll provide prenatal care, we'll provide care for during the pregnancy, during birth, and then we'll have a place where the child can be adopted. In fact, a lot of the social services are a lot less in those states where there are these Republican and more abortion limitations that are so what are women left to really kind of decide for themselves what's best. So what's going to happen is that there are going to be more backroom abortions, and already 68,000 women worldwide die from these backroom abortions. And that is a horrible statistic. In fact, when we look at statistics, almost 23% of women who end up dying within the first year after birth is due to mental health problems. And 43% of, in fact, so 23% die from either suicide or mental health issues. We already know about postpartum depression. So here, if you're forced to have a child, if you're forced to carry a pregnancy, a lot of these women don't do good prenatal care because they don't want to have the baby. So they're already depressed. So when there's bad prenatal care, the chances of the baby dying or the mother suffering from infection or bleeding or, high blood pressure, toxemia, the chances of those just keep increasing. And so we have to really look at the whole picture. We not only have to look at the woman as an individual and what they're going through, but all the repercussions. Nobody's even talking about these children that are going to be born to women where it is an unwanted pregnancy. So here we keep talking about mental health and mental health of children. You mentioned a lot about the school shootings that are continuing to happen and the mental health in children. That is why I'm such a big advocate, not only for mental health for women, but for the children and parenting issues. So many things in America need to change, and people need to look at the whole picture, not just, hey, we're stopping abortions and we're going to have an increase in birth rates.
Yeah, speaking of mental health and everything, I do want to bring Peter Lovenham on because he's written a book about gratitude. We just came out of the holiday season and Thanksgiving and all along those lines. And a lot of times folks give a lip service to gratitude. I know that my dad, who is an artist, many years ago did a art piece that was called Thoughts and Prayers, because he felt, and I think part of what he was doing with that art piece, it was kind of a protest piece, was that too often we give thoughts and prayers, but it's kind of like a platitude. It doesn't have any actions behind it. So that's why he did that particular art piece. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the importance of gratitude and a little bit about your book, Peter, because I think that even in this space of mental health, that we oftentimes don't think about the importance of gratitude and even the care that doctors give, because sometimes they do not get the respect that they need as well. So I just wondered if you could share your thoughts on that, Peter.
Sure, Mark. Thanks for having me on the show. Listening to you read the news and listening to Dr. Patel, I think gratitude's an excellent topic to bring into the discussion because there's an awful lot of stress and anxiety going around today for nearly all of us. And we often can't do much about those big issues, but it turns out, according to very reliable studies, that cultivating a sense of gratitude can help us cope with stress and anxiety. It can be an antidote, a countermeasure that we can employ to kind of keep our equilibrium in the face of so much stress and concerning news going on these days. So that's why I wrote the book, Gift Shop of Gratitude. I've written 8 other books and had not anticipated writing about gratitude. It came up rather unexpectedly. My wife recently retired, and as a result, we've been traveling more. And what I found was that nearly everywhere we go, whether it's a national park or museum or any other tourist site, we're required to exit through the gift shop. It's not a request, it's a requirement. And initially, that put me off. I don't like being told what to do. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought about gift shops, it occurred to me that a gift shop can be a metaphor for all the gifts that we receive in our lifetimes. And the specific items that we find in gift shops, whether it's a snow globe or a tote bag or t-shirt, can symbolize specific things that we're grateful for. So I wrote this book, Gift Shop of Gratitude, for people to further cultivate their sense of gratitude for all the good things we have in life. The book is in part a journal. It's filled with stories that prompt us to recall and put into words the many specific things that we're grateful for. And the prompts are themselves stories about 20 common items you find in almost any gift shop in the world. As I say, from snow globes to coffee mugs and bobbleheads and t-shirts and tote bags, that remind us of the people, the places, and the experiences that we most value. And my hope is that when people complete the journal part of this book, they'll create a family keepsake, something for their children, their grandchildren, and everyone they love. They can say, in effect, this is who I am. These are the things I most cherish.
That makes sense. Peter, and this is for you and Dr. Patel. I know one of the things we heard a lot about doing these last, I'd say several years, even with the pandemic and everything, is this notion of division, people that had a opposite view of various things, whether it was presidential candidates or whether it was the vaccine or a number of other things out there. So, but when I've talked to people from other countries, they have said that we probably have a lot more to be grateful for than we actually give credit for, and everything along those lines. So I just wonder, what do you both think is the antidote or the kind of ways that we can deal with this divisive nature? Because we have a new president coming in, and it seems like we have this divisive nature, but it was going in even with the past president. It's been going on in my mind for decades now, and everything, even back, and I was a supporter of him with Barack and others and everything. But what can we do to hopefully calm some of this division?
Well, I think you make an excellent point, and I think we do have more in common when we count our blessings, when we become aware of how much we are grateful for. That can help us have a sense of a commonality with many other people. But as you say, it's an interesting thing about gratitude. I don't know how it is at your Thanksgiving table, but at mine, we try to go around and invite everyone to say what they're grateful for. And what I find is that people speak of gratitude in very broad terms. They might say, I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my family, and this all well and good. But it becomes much more difficult for some reason to be very specific about the things we're grateful for.
Right.
And the studies show, interestingly, that cultivating a sense of gratitude carries with it many health benefits, both physical and emotional, and that these health benefits are greatly increased if we're able to be very specific about what we're grateful for.
Mhm.
There was an interesting study that came out just this past summer. I think it was in July, from Harvard School of Public Health. Researchers looked at 49,000 female nurses, all in their 70s. And they found that the ones who were able to say that they had a long list of things that they were grateful for, in the next 3 years showed a lower incidence than expected of disease and other health problems. And also, most interestingly, showed a 9% lower rate of mortality than expected over the next 3 years. So in that sense, developing a strong sense of gratitude for specific things, that long list of things, may actually prolong our lives. It's a nice thing to hang on to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Dr. Patel, along those same kind of lines, I know one of the things that is oftentimes talked about in the medical profession that we actually had on one of our other shows, Misfits Managed, which was on yesterday, a young lady that's going through some healthcare. And she actually was their guest coming in from the hospital bed, and she was talking about the empathy that she tries to get and gives both to the hospital care workers, and that she's hoping is being given to her as well. So I just wanted your own thoughts, kind of to what Peter said and everything. How important is it for our caregivers to be empathetic to their patients?
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't have the basic empathy for what the other person is going through, then you've really kind of lost your humanity. It's as simple as that. And I agree with Peter that one of the main things that we can give each other is a sense of belonging, a sense of understanding each other. And I was smiling when you were talking about you wanted to ask your guests what they were doing about their Christmas shopping. And over the last few years, my philosophy of giving has really changed. One of the things that I always admire about Americans, and when you say bringing the society together, is that Americans are one of the most generous people I've ever met. You talk about like I'm going to get really personal here, but my other half just got diagnosed with cancer. And the number of responses that I've had from people reaching out to me, no matter what their political affiliation was, is that, they wanted to reach out to us and say how sorry we were and what we were going to do to go forward. I bring up these personal issues because these are the things that touches everybody's lives. And when I talk about giving at Christmas now, I talk about, what charities I'm going to give to. We give to food banks. We want to make sure that people have enough money. I have stopped buying. In fact, I told my two significant others that I do not want to have any Christmas presents under the tree this year. Let's talk about what we're going to give to society, and leaving behind a legacy, having a purpose and passion. I so agree with Peter that is so needed. And I just had to do an article for a magazine that talks about leaving behind a legacy. Well, what legacy can we leave behind? We can leave behind what we are grateful for. What do we have in our lives? And I was really fortunate that we just celebrated my mother's 90th birthday with 100 of family and friends. And at first she was really reluctant, but then she was so happy that so many people showed up and wanted to be with her and talk to her and just take pictures with her and really celebrate her life. And to me, that is what we have to be grateful for. We have to be grateful for the people that give us wisdom, that give us a guidance, that ground us, that we have more than enough in our lives that we are able to give to other people. And why have I come out of retirement? Basically to talk about mental health, because that's what my profession was for 25 years. And now I'm so concerned about, the parenting, the children, all the things that are going on. But you're right, we do have a lot in America to be grateful for. I'm like Peter. I love traveling, and every time we travel abroad and we come home, my other half always says he wants to kiss the ground that we come back to the US, because nothing is as good as what we have here.
It's just along those same lines that you mentioned mental health and everything along those lines. I know it's a passion for both you and Peter. What can we do to improve the mental health? Because like I said, it does seem like it is something that is not being addressed thoroughly. I know that I've worked with a veteran advocacy group sometime back over the last several years. We didn't do it last year, but it was a talent show that was definitely in that space of dealing with veteran rights, and mental health definitely came up in that space and everything. And I was just wondering, what do both of you feel that we can do to improve the mental health of our society? Our other panelists, including Rick Rosner, who is a mental person and one of the founders of the network, Nick Palveda, who is here as well, and Jatovia may have some thoughts as well. But I just wanted to my two guests, what can we do to make this a more mentally fit society?
One of the things I always say is you have to learn to listen. People have forgotten how to listen. People continue to either text or don't reach out or communicate. And if you don't learn to communicate again by talking to people, making eye contact, actually listening, because everybody has such a short attention span and we tend to multitask all the time. So if we don't learn to actually listen to what the other person is saying, we don't reach out to talk to people rather than just texting and sending a little emoji, we're really losing that form of communication. We've got to teach our children by example, putting down our social, whether it's phones or laptops or iPads or whatever. So that's one of the things. Dr. Sanjay Gupta has this wonderful saying that, a smile or saying a hello is like CPR to the brain. I really think that you can change one person's life or how bad they're having a day by just smiling and talking and reaching out. That's my thing in life, is that you have to put your differences aside. You have to learn to listen. You have to learn to talk. And you have to respect. Respect is one of the biggest things. If you don't respect the other person, they're not going to respect you. So whether you agree with them or not, we've got to practice some of these things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What's your take on that, Peter? Because actually, honestly, what Dr. Patel was saying, I was talking to a new friend on social media, and I think I sent them like a picture, and they even said basically that I was frowning on the picture. So they were basically calling me out for having a frown on that picture and everything. And they were like, come on, they gave it another name like frack or something like that. But I knew what they were saying was that it was a frown on the picture versus a smiling face.
Yeah, speaking of smile, it reminds me of one of my favorite expressions, which is, if you see somebody without a smile, you can give them one of yours. But in terms of improving mental health across the country, I'm going to go back to the book I wrote before Gift Shop of Gratitude, which is called The Attachment Effect. And it was a close look at what's called what psychologists refer to as attachment theory. It has to do with raising emotionally healthy children. Because according to attachment theory, the quality of the bond between a newborn up to maybe age 3 and their primary caregivers, usually the parents, affects the mental health of that individual for their entire life. Mm-hmm. And I think when we see a lot of teenagers going off the rail and being involved in shootings, and older people too, a lot of that is an expression of what's often called ineffective attachment or disorganized attachment. And all that stems from child raising practices from ages 0 to 3. So investing in parenting education might be one of the best things we can do as a nation to improve overall mental health.
It makes a lot of sense. And speaking of parents and everything, one of our regular hosts, he's been going and visiting his daughter, I believe, in one of the African nations. So he was definitely doing some effective parenting. So Steve is back in pocket and everything. I think he's away from Africa and back home and everything. So Steve, how was the trip? How are you doing? We've been talking to Peter Loving about gratitude, and Dr. Patel about women's rights and a number of other things, including mental health. And I know you just recently came back from your trip visiting your daughter, I believe, is on a educational trip, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Well, I'm not so prepared for the show today, but welcome. I'm just getting over jet lag. I was in Kenya and in South Africa, but it was a great trip. I went on my first safari. I haven't even done my Facebook post yet. I got some lions and elephants, and it was really amazing. Saw leopards and cheetahs, and it was really great to be in Cape Town, to go to Robben Island and see everything going on. And my daughter just climbed Mount Kenya, so she's coming back in March, and back in the saddle. And I was the finalist for a position with Governor Stein, but I didn't get it. So I'm going to announce for the Lake County Commission in a week and continue my political journey. But I was a little bit disappointed, but it is what it is. I gave it my best shot. So hopefully I can win the next journey. And if not, I'll be a full-time media guy. So I'm not running for council again. So I got to win or I'm out. But it's good to see you all, and gratitude. It's a good time to celebrate that, and of course women's rights. A lot on the table with Trump getting sworn in on January 20th, I must say I was quite surprised with how popular he is around the world. When I went to Kenya, I thought that there would be anti-Trump sentiment, but they just think this is great for America, and I don't get it. I mean, and it's there's something about him that I think people look at the comeback and they just think that this is great that someone can come back from all that he had against him. But he is the president, and I think it's going to be interesting the next year or two to see what happens. But the Democrats, I think, need to really start shopping around for how they're going to win the White House back, because the numbers and data don't look very good for them right now. So.
Appreciate that. Rick, I saw your hand up earlier. Did you have a question for either Peter or?
Without question, social media makes us more selfish and contributes to division. And we can say, use less social media, have our kids use it less, but people love it. I don't see how social media gets reduced or goes away.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, and I think that it's it is what it is. But I mean, we need to focus on women's rights, and the legislatures and the states still have an opportunity if they have Democratic majorities. So that's the way to deal with it. And then we got to focus on the Democrats have to focus on the midterm elections in 26, which I think could be a Democratic year. But I think the question is, when you look at, before we get back to our guests, I think politically, I think what I've seen is that the Democrats have just, we're traditionally in the United States always the party of progress and hope, from Roosevelt to Kennedy, even to Bill Clinton. We often forget President Clinton's song tuned to his campaign 92 was "Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow," and then Obama came along and talked about hope and change for a better America. But now what's happened is that the Republicans have disrupted and have been a part of the vision of a working class. And what's funny is I'm seeing a lot. I mean, if you look at the numbers, 47% Hispanics are going for Trump, 23% Black Americans. And what's interesting to me, even with my kids are both Democrats, but I see a lot more young kids going Republican. I'm the longest serving Indian American, but the newest victor is a 28-year-old Trump supporter that just won a Cumberland County Commission seat in North Carolina, and now they're saying he's a rising star, and he said he's going to run for lieutenant governor on the next cycle, and he may have a chance, but anyone below 30 is all going Republican. And I'm seeing this across the board, with men, particularly with men. So I think this is really going to be something that the Democrats are going to have to figure out how to get back on message. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but I think if they repeat what they did in the last cycle, Vance will be elected president after Trump.
Yeah, just really quickly, Dr. Patel, along those same lines, so Jacoby's hands up as well. But what is your thoughts? Because it does seem like I mentioned one of the other cases that was in the news that there's a lot of misogyny and a lot of sexism, not just here but around the world, because we all know about the case in France and everything like that. So does it seem like we are living still in that patriarchal kind of society? And if so, can it be disrupted? Should it be disrupted? So I just wanted your take on that and everything, because it does seem like there is a lot of bias against women.
That's what I was just thinking about when Steve was talking, because I was born in Kenya. And so I lived in Kenya till I was 11, and then I lived in Zambia for another 5 years. Wow. So yes, I understand the African mentality of wanting, and I think that's what Trump exudes, is this a rich man getting away with things, and a very patriarchal society. Indians, why am I more outspoken by women? Because for centuries women have always been in the second class position, and that is why even Indian men, and during this election, I reached out to so many Indian families that I could. And I said, come on, we've got to get past this. But even in the Indian society, it's really difficult for them to appreciate the contributions of women. We are still, we may have a really successful career, but you're still the main person in the kitchen. You're cooking, you're cleaning, taking care of the children. And my first book, US Unhinged, I've written a lot about what needs to change. What men need to look at. But you're right. I mean, we're struggling with a patriarchal society, with the Hispanics, the Indians, the Asians, and now it's also Black men who have trouble accepting that a woman could be a president. I mean, the two people that Trump won against are women. So, there has to be an inbuilt bias, not only for women, but, and like you said, with the Me Too movement, I don't think it did too much favor for the relationship either. And that's why I got into the writing, because I was really horrified about all the women kind of jumping on the bandwagon with Me Too movement and not really understanding. And I think that the last time I was on the show, I got hammered talking about, they said that the women were looking at men as toxic, but I don't think that's the situation. I think what's happening is that women are just not getting their place in life. And no matter how much we exceed with schooling or in our careers or whatever, it is still a patriarchal society. I'm sorry, but that's where we are at this stage in our lives.
Topher?
Yeah.
I think that Dr. Patel, you're spot on. And this is why, Steve, I have to push back on what you're saying is that the panic button that you're talking about changing. If you look at our past elections, this honestly was the only one that the Republicans actually won since 2020. So in 2022, they didn't win. In 2023, they didn't win. But this one, they actually won. And it wasn't based. There are things that we don't want to say. And this is why I think, Peter, I would love to know how we change our society. Because we are in a patriarchy. And I think we're in the death throes of the patriarchy. Donald Trump represented the patriarchy. And that's what he represents. That white male angst. And that's what he ran on. And that's how he won a lot of people over. Yes, in the Black community, we have to admit we do have a problem with women leaders. In the Hispanic community, in every community that you point out, it is about the patriarchy. If you look at actually, we want to talk about, Christianity this, we're all this Christianity. Well, in the Bible is basically all about the patriarchy. That is all it is. And so we, at some point, we have to admit there are those things that are unspoken as to why he won and why we were able, that the Democrat Party was unable to overcome a hump that was there, that just like Joe Biden's age, that's something that depressed the Democrat Party. Kamala Harris inspired everybody. Had she been a male, there probably would have been a different outcome based on just as what Dr. Patel pointed out. So I think we cannot throw everything out, which is what I think the Democrat Party is trying to do. I've seen the Young Turks talk about, we have to look at the extreme progressives or the extreme left wing. Well, the Young Turks are part of that left wing. And now you're talking about, we got to run away from that. There was a there's a Democrat who's gone on Fox News talking about, we have to get away from these woke ideas. Well, now you're using the term woke in the same derogatory way as this group did, just so you can carry favor. So I think
just really quickly, because I had a question for Peter really quickly along those same lines, because one of the things is there are a number of institutions that historically, if you go by them, were about gratitude. Because I think I brought it up on this show and other shows, including the show that I do on Wednesday evenings, that most religions, whether it was Buddhism, Islam, or Christianity, talk about love thy neighbor, gratitude, and a number of other things that are in those documents, whatever you want to call them, holy books, and all along those lines. But I don't know that even the institutions do a good enough job of encouraging it. So I just wanted your take on that. Are our institutions stepping away from their basic principles, even the principles of gratitude?
I don't think that I find that, but you mentioned religion, and people can disagree with me on this, but in studying gratitude in order to write this book, Gift Shop of Gratitude, um, I came to the conclusion that I don't think gratitude is necessarily a natural part of human nature. I think it's something that has to be taught and constantly reinforced. Um, and just to give one possible example of that, if you look at the Bible in the book of Exodus, um, the story says that God, through Moses, helped free the Israelites after 400 years of bondage in Egypt. And then what happens next? Well, they go in the desert, and within about 2 weeks, they're complaining about the food. They say they want to go back to Egypt. It was easier there, which is a kind of an expression of lack of gratitude, I think. And my studies suggest that most religions have rituals and prayers that are meant to teach and then reinforce the concept of gratitude. And in our American civil religion, if you will, we have a national holiday all about gratitude, Thanksgiving, meant to reinforce that concept. So I think that gratitude in general has to be taught and constantly reinforced, whether it's through an institution or the family or all of us as individuals. I'm not sure that we can blame, the government or institutions for our falling backwards often and forgetting that we need to be grateful.
That makes sense. Nick, you're one of the founders of the network. What is your thoughts? You've been listening to this conversation?
Yeah, I have, and I have a question for Dr. Patel. When it comes to abortion rights, we've brought this up on the network many times, but my question is this: how do you balance the rights of the unborn child with the rights of the women? Or is your opinion that the unborn child has no rights? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not a matter of rights. My take on that is look at the person that's in front of you. Put yourself in the place and position of what the woman is going through. And, people want the pro-life movement really just looks at the unborn child. So it's like 100% looking at the fetus that's not even born, or maybe just a few cells, but they're not looking at the woman. We talked about empathy. We talked about trying to understand what's going on in the other person's life. We're look at the life of this person. How is it going to impact this person? And why does the government have to have a say-so in what's happening in your private life? I mean, let's face it. Women have choices. Are men going to be forced to have vasectomies so that they don't have, unwanted pregnancies? Are we going to ever go that route? No, because majority of the restrictions are put on women. They are not put on men. There are no laws that say this is how you're going to treat a body. But you have lots of laws that restrict what a woman can do and how she's going to be treated. So no, there is no balance. And if society at any time will say, okay, we will provide for all the prenatal care, we will child will be given up for adoption. We will take care of you 100%. So you don't have the financial stress, you don't have the medical stress. Then, hey, it's a different ballgame. But right now, we are not there. We don't have any of those services in place.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the woman has no personal responsibility to raising the child. It's all the responsibility of the state and the government to take care of the child, not the individual who is going to basically bypass any form of personal responsibility. Would that be
No,
correct?
I'm not saying that you have to bypass your personal responsibility.
Okay.
There are lots of women that will have the children, whether they're forced to or they're not. And But my concern is that, just like Peter was saying, that something has to happen with in the first 3 years of that child's life. So if there is no attachment and these women are forced to have children that they don't want, what are you doing? You're generating a whole generation of children that are not wanted out of these forced pregnancies. Is that what you would want for your daughter or your girlfriend or your mother or your wife, to be forced into doing something that they don't want to do?
Yeah, well, we go back to the question, because I'm sure you've read Roe versus Wade and the Dobbs decision. Now, in Roe versus Wade, which I thought was actually pretty well done, it was based on the viability of the fetus. If it was viable, then you could not do the abortion. If it was not viable, you could. And it seemed to make a lot of logical sense. Then Dobbs pushed the whole issue to the states. So where do you, but the government is looking at this. When do you balance the rights of the born child versus the rights of the women? Now, if you say, well, the unborn child, no matter what the age is, gets born into a family that doesn't want them, or they're not providing them adequate care, that could take place whether or not the person was interested in abortion or not. Would that be correct, Counselor?
I guess so. I mean, like I said, abortion is such a personal issue. And unless you put yourself in that position, I don't think that anybody else can really understand how the woman would need to come to that decision.
Okay. Now, last question. If you were the person who was the judge or writing the laws, and I know Peter has a legal background too, so I'm sure he loves this conversation. So you're in charge of writing the laws relating to the abortion issue. How would you write the law for abortion, Dr. Patel?
How would I do it? Well,
Yes.
I basically stand up for women's rights, and I would go back to Roe versus Wade. I mean,
Okay. Right.
We just have to.
I would agree. I would agree with you. Like I said, I read that so many times. I would say that was probably that's part of the reason it stood for 50 plus
That's
years.
right.
It was
That's
actually
exactly right.
a very well reasoned decision.
Yeah, and why
I would just go back to Roe versus Wade. Right. I would agree. Okay.
Yeah. Joey,
No further questions, Counselor. Thank you. If you felt like you're on the stand, it's because I'm a practicing attorney in real life. But basically, I'm sort of retired. I'm living in Europe right now, so I'm in Barcelona. That's the reason Barcelona's behind me. So good point. Toby, you can jump in and tell me all the progressive views. I've talked to you.
I mean, what I would like to do is actually bring Peter into this, because we just had a reasoned discussion around a hot topic debate, and we were able to come to an agreement in that hot topic debate with no yelling, cursing, no attacking one another.
Pretty
and
amazing.
I think is where Peter you were trying to angle, I guess, our society towards, is having these reasoned discussions. And my question to bring you into the conversation is, how can we do that?
Well, I think we just did it. I think you make an excellent point. People took turns talking. They didn't make personal attacks. We kept to the topic and to the substance rather than the emotion underneath the substance. Nicely done. Mark did a very good job of moderating.
Okay, Peter, I'll have to admit that's unusual here.
Yeah, really.
Plus, we don't have our two staunch Republicans on our panel right now, so the thing is that makes it even more
easy.
It
makes it easier to do when you don't have.
because usually this has been called the food fight, but we've had some conversations about it, because if you look at media today, you're either all on the left or all on the right, and you don't put the left and right together. And part of the reason you don't do that is they tend to how you say, overtalk each other and have issues with each other, and it becomes a food fight. So it's very difficult to balance the left and the right positions, which are kind of strange, because at a certain point in time, they have to balance. I mean, you have to have some.
Speaking of food fights, because we only got 5 minutes, I'm actually going to end with this particular note, and all along those lines. And this is for my guests as well as the regular panelists that are here and everything. So, and speaking of gratitude, because Peter mentioned Thanksgiving, and that was the other holiday. We're getting ready to go into Christmas, and yes, it's even done at Christmas dinners as well, because yes, we did that this past Thanksgiving. And so, as we going out of 2024, is everybody here grateful for, and what are they looking forward to in the upcoming year and everything? So I'll just start and everything, because I am definitely, as you said, and some of them are those general platitudes. So I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have had and opportunities that I continue to have, both here with Pod TV and other places, including the Cultural Center, that I'll go have my Christmas lunch dinner with probably in about an hour from now and everything like that. And I'm grateful for my family that supports me, and I'm looking forward to hopefully less division in 2025, even though that might be just wishful thinking on my part and everything. So Dr. Patel, what are some of the things that you are grateful for and looking forward to?
Well, I'm certainly grateful that I still have my 90-year-old mother who grounds me, and I talk to her every day at 11 for about a half an hour. So I'm glad that she's still in my life. I'm also grateful that I have the medical skills to negotiate what treatment we're going to need for my other half that has just been diagnosed. So I'm hoping that we're going to be having very successful treatment for his cancer over the next year.
Sounds good. Peter, what about you before I get to my regular panelists, including Steve?
Well, I'm grateful that my wife and I will celebrate our second wedding anniversary this year. That was a very nice thing to be able to get remarried recently. And all my 6 grandchildren are healthy. And I've had a wonderful time talking to people around the country about my new book, Gift Shop of Gratitude. And I'm grateful for having that opportunity. And I also want to wish Dr. Patel's other half very good luck with their health challenge, and hope that the medicine will lead to a complete recovery.
That's good and everything. What about you, Steve? I'll go with you, Steve, and then I'll go with Nick. I'll end with Nick, but just over here. But Steve, what are you grateful for?
We pray for Dr. Patel's husband's recovery, and I'm grateful for my family. Looking forward to my daughter eventually coming back, and all of us together back here in the U.S. And I'm just looking forward to a good year. And I spoke at a graduation this year at Big Tech, which is one of the premier educational institutions, and it really made me kind of relax more about just life in general. I know there's a lot of people down now, if you're Democrats, about the results of the elections, but it was Steve Jobs' commencement at Stanford, where he talked about all the failures that he had, but how they ended up opening up new doors, from getting let go of Apple to going to college, taking calligraphy classes, which led to the Macintosh computer, and eventually founded Pixar. And then Roger Federer inspiring me at Dartmouth this year, talking about how he won 80% of the matches, but only 54% of the points. And in the game of life, you're going to lose more points than you win. But a true champion is one who looks forward to the next point, doesn't look at the point they lost. And I'm going to use that as my New Year's resolution, because in politics, it's so easy to keep looking in the rearview window. But I think if we can look at these experiences and be motivated for the next day, then there's no such thing as a failure, and life can be more rewarding. So that's my New Year's resolution. I've been practicing recently, and it's making me feel a little bit more relaxed and ready to go through the flow. And when you hear I would encourage everyone to go listen to Roger Federer's commencement speech called "Tennis Lessons" to the students at Dartmouth. Really articulate, as one of the greatest tennis players of all time. But he likened life to a tennis match, which is pretty interesting. So
yeah. What about you, Toby and Nick? And then we'll reenact that. Toby, what are you grateful for?
I'm a speaking platitude. No, we're gonna have fun. I'm thankful for dad jokes because they keep me happy. They laughter is the best medicine, as I used to say in the Reader's Digest. For example, what does a t-shirt put on its feet? tissues.
Teach-
See, dad jokes. Bad dad jokes make you laugh. For the
So, yeah.
future, what am I grateful for? Stuff in the future, just being able to enjoy life, enjoy family, enjoy friends, talking with and meeting with new people here and everywhere I go.
Sounds good. Nick, I'll have you close it out. So what are you grateful for? And then we'll get on out of here with that.
Okay, well, I'm grateful today for our two guests. I did quickly scan through Peter's CV. He's taught at Rochester Institute of Technology, and I was wondering if he knows David K. Johnson, because he went to David K. Johnson is one of our commentators out of Rochester.
Oh, yes, I know David. Yeah.
Okay, David's been on a lot of our shows, but he's basically kind of retired right now. So I was wondering if you'd run into him. And Dr. Patel, I have no clue what city you're from, but I was grateful to have you here and be able to discuss it, because we think on our network it's an important issue as women's rights, and the balance has swung the wrong direction, and we haven't got there. So I'm grateful for both you for showing up on Pod TV. It's that we have a audience, not just in the United States, but worldwide, that are interested in listening to what you people both have to say. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just tell Nick that if he wants to look me up, all my books are available on Amazon, and all you have to do is say books by Dr. Sheila Patel. And these
Okay.
are all
I was doing that, but there was a lot of Sheila Patels. That was the problem. Okay,
Which
so
city are
I'll
you
go
in
back.
again, Dr. Patel again? I remember, but I don't.
I can give you my website, but you have to spell it Shila, just like it says on my name there.
And I have about 5,000 books. Usually they're in my background, but they're in transit to Barcelona. And I just have a zillion books, so I'll probably be getting add some more, because several people on our network, we buy a lot of books from the people that come here. So just the way it is. But thank you both for showing up today. That
You're
was
very welcome.
really a treat. Okay.
Appreciate both of you. And on that note, we'll get ready to end, and I'll get ready to get over to time for my Christmas dinner. But it was a fun conversation. I look forward to seeing both of you back in the near future and all along those lines. And hopefully folks will be getting all of your books, because you have definitely referenced several of them. But it was a fun conversation.